The following is brought to you by Total Seal Piston Rings, the leader in ring seal technology. TotalSeal.com. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hidden Horsepower presented by Total Seal. I'm Joe Castello and I am super excited. We got a very special episode for you, but first, let's bring in my co-host of this show. He is the Director of Technical Sales at Total Seal Piston Rings, Mr. Keith Jones. Keith, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. I appreciate the introduction, Joe, and hope everybody out there is doing well in this November 3rd. We're dating the show. It's Election Day. Get out there, and by the time you hear that, you'll have already gone out there, but I hope you went out there and voted.
Oh, by the time they hear it, it's going to be middle of next year, probably, Keith. You know, we got to do some extensive editing. He's time-stamping the show, but I'm leaving it because it is a special one, and I always love the over-the-top introductions for you, Keith. But on this show, we really do need to make an over-the-top introduction. Since we've started Hidden Horsepower, we've had many great engine builders on the show, and our audience is growing and people are subscribing. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcast, or just go to the TotalSeal.com website. And one of our things is at the end of the show, we ask the engine builder for advice for the next generation. And very often, that person says, go to a school, and sometimes they name SAMTech.edu, the School of Automotive, Machinists, and Technology down in Houston, Texas area, talking about Judson Massingill. Judd basically creating the school that is getting name-checked over and over on Hidden Horsepower, so why not have the man on the show and go right to the source? I'm super excited. How about you, Keith?
As always, we'll just say in this industry and what we do, Judson's a legend, and very honored to have him on the show.
Well, let's get right to him. From Houston, Texas, he co-founded the School of Automotive, Machinists, and Technology. He's the Director of Education, and he is genuinely educating the next generation of engine builders who are going to keep racing going for the next 50 years. Mr. Judson Massingill. Judd, welcome to Hidden Horsepower.
Joe, thank you. Hello, Keith. How are you?
Doing great, Judd. Good to speak with you.
We have so many questions. As I mentioned, you've been name-checked 100 times on the show. I don't want everybody to think that you're just some engine-building educator. You have spent time on the racetrack. You've got the bug for racing. You love to go fast. The school's got many project cars. You are heavy into this profession that you've started.
I'm going to tell you, I have to first tell everyone that if it wasn't for my wife, Linda, most people know this, the school wouldn't exist. I couldn't put up with all those government regulations and all the paperwork and all that stuff. Just, you know, I'm going to do my lecture in dynoing and machining, and she runs all that today so I can play every day. And it really, this thing started out in the mid-'70s. In the mid-'70s, by the mid-'70s, I was doing work out in my garage, you know, as a lot of hot rodders were, trying to support their own car mainly, you know. And that got a little larger and a little larger. And then in the late '70s, an oil man came to me and wanted to build some NASCAR engines, which I'd been building in some winning circle track engines, and that's what led to it. He had, you know, lots of disposable income, let's say. And so we started that thing, but, you know, we couldn't get any help, okay? I mean, just where do you get a machinist? And I went back to college. I started college in '67, '68 and dropped out to go racing. And now I'm going to go back because these computers were coming in, and I said, whoa, okay, we got to get this, you know, we got to get on those things right now because that's going to be the future. I should have bought Apple stock, but that's another story. Okay. Anyway, seriously, I was downtown at school going in the evenings, you know, working at the shop in the day and everything. And she'd come down there and eat with me sometimes downtown. And we're sitting there and, you know, it's one of them days that, you know, we're way behind and we can't get help and all this stuff. And I said, you know, this is just insanity. There needs to be a school for this, you know, okay? And Linda says, I've already said that. Okay, where are they? I said, I know of none. Okay, I said, I don't think there's anything like it. And she says, well, we need to make one. And I looked at her and I said, we need to make a school. She says, yeah, someone's got to do it. And I said, well, good. That sounds like for something you could do. And it took her 4 years. It usually takes about 6, jumping through all the government loops and getting approvals and everything. Anyway, in 1985, the school was officially founded. And we've been going since then, and her running everything and me trying to keep up with the engines and, the curriculum and everything has worked out really well. We're just very, very proud of, the places that I don't want to go into all that, but the teams that have our, what I'm saying, our graduates are everywhere. I mean, in drag racing, I would think that every pro stock team has one. Most of them have more than one. And the Top Fuel and the Funny Car, and then their own comp teams and run, all kind of stuff going on. And, of course, in the circle track world, in NASCAR, I don't even know how many we have over there now. There was a time it's probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was walking with Robert Yates through the NASCAR shop, the Ford engine shop, and we were going through there, and somebody'd holler, hey, Linda, or hey, Judd, or whatever, And Doug says, wait a minute. He says, I know I got a bunch of guys, but how many do I have? So he got on the intercom and said, everybody graduated from the School of Automotive Machinists, come up front, okay? And at the time, I think he had 43, I'll be off 2 or 3 numbers, but 43 comes to my mind, of actual machinists, assemblers, et cetera, for the Cup engines, and 17 of them were our graduates. That makes your day, In the old days when I was building engines, the engines were my ego, but now my graduates are my ego.
Wow.
I go to Disneyland every day.
And that's how you are able to be successful, that passion. And I can't help but think and be thankful that you guys made that decision and investment, because where would our passion be? Motorsports, racing, Keith talking with people every day. They're trying to go out and find horsepower, make horsepower, compete, all of these things. If we didn't have centers of education where information can be shared and mentorships can happen, and what you guys do with helping place these students once they go through the school, who knows where we would be now as a sport? And certainly we wouldn't be as far along as we are.
I hope the school's made a small dent anyway. That's we just enjoy it, and coming here and you get around these guys and girls, okay, with this enthusiasm, and it just keeps you enthused. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we pull all-nighters just like the race team, especially for the Engine Masters Challenge and all that stuff, I mean, we'll just work all night, all weekend. I mean, it's just like being, going racing or something, where we're just dynoing, and we'll go to the track and run the cars and whatever. And that's one thing. One big thing I like to bring up that a lot of people, I think Joe understands it, and I think Keith does too, but we have our name on the side of cars. We do not sponsor those cars. If they don't have our engines in those cars, they don't have our name on those cars. Those engines were built here at the school by the students and instructors.
And I think that is the best part about it. I do want to point out, though, you mentioned Linda was a huge part of overcoming all the obstacles of the paperwork, and I get stressed just thinking about that, all the regulations you guys must have to deal with to take in students and everything. But that's not her number one thing. She went 200 mile per hour in the Texas Mile. I think that's the stat we need to point out here on Hidden Horsepower. That
was a big deal. That really was. And that was in a 98 Camaro through the mufflers. That was her street car. It ran 980s, 990s through the mufflers. And she used to run the True Street stuff in the NMCA. That was a serious little 427 LS. And naturally aspirated, for those that Joe didn't mention that. It ran 200 naturally aspirated. That's awful quick. It made a lot of, let's just say, Power Adder Vipers and Corvettes and Camaros a little upset, But, we do that. And she could, the whole family, of course, Brian and Kim, that doesn't get out that much, that she takes care of all the job placement and, helps Linda on a lot of the paperwork and stuff. But we're just racers, always have been and always will be. We're not some business owner that got into this to make money. This was our passion. I think that makes a big difference. Us staying here 12 or 14 hours a day, to us, it's like Disneyland. We just get up every morning enjoying this stuff. I tell the students, I said, I don't know if you're going to be flying around in Learjets or something, but you're going to have, if you can put metal shavings on the ground, okay, if you can do that, you're going to have a job somewhere the rest of your life, and it sure beats working for a living.
Keith Jones, jump in here a little bit. Obviously, the passion is there. We need young people to buy into this. We need to keep advancing the ball with horsepower and engines and racing of all forms. Talk a little bit about what you've seen come out of the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology as it affects what you do at Total Seal.
Well, and again, I want to compliment the entire school on doing such an outstanding job. And as Judson said, Linda's such a big part of that operation, and the consummate racer. She's would say she's excellent behind the wheel. So I wanted to throw those props out there as well. But as you just said, there's so much passion and so much desire right now through media that's out there. Guys seeing about building engines and racing, and they want to go do this, but yet they you can only learn so much watching a video on YouTube. And as Judson said, it's kind of hard to learn to make chips watching a video. And though some probably can, but this industry is hungry for these guys. And if they want to take this, they want to advance it, they want to learn more, they've got to take it from just wanting to know to actually learning and going to a place, going to the school, finding out how all these parts interconnect, how they work together, and the machine that's involved to make this happen. It doesn't just magically happen. There's a lot that goes to this, a lot of thinking, a lot of computer knowledge, as Judson said, learning how to run the machines, learning the field. There's a lot of things that come with time and age, and this industry in a big part. And again, not trying to put too much age on myself or any others, there's a lot of people, a lot of very, very respected builders in this industry that are, I'll call it, they're aging out. They're getting to retirement or past retirement, and they're looking to get out of these, doing what they do every day, and they are hungry to find the next generation of guys that they can hand the reins off to and say, continue the name of my shop. We want to continue that. They're looking for these guys. So there's an opportunity out there right now, bigger than I have ever seen in the past, for these guys to walk out of a place like the school and walk into a very fulfilling, rewarding career.
Well, I'll tell you, it's true. Kim, the daughter in the business, she gets the worst. She has one of the worst jobs because we can't get them out of here. We're a small school, 130 or 40 a year, and we just don't have enough to go around. And we try to, the small shops in the rural areas, they won't move there, and you got to pay them some money. And I tell you, it's and I tell the guys, what you have to do is you have to get one in there, and then one of his underclassmen, when he gets there, if they were, the good ones know the good ones, you know what I'm saying? And they say, hey, this is where you need to go. But I'm not going to name any names, but just in the, in the last month, in the last month, the business is just, the machine shop business, I don't know how or why. And Keith and I have talked about it earlier, that some of this restoration business is going just completely insane. But everything's going, everyone needs help, and, everyone's getting jobs, more than we can get out of here, that's for sure.
So let's evolve the conversation and bring the two elements together. We talk about machining, we talk about ring seal, and how things have advanced dramatically from where they were years ago. So let's go back to the engine shop Judd was working in the 1970s and the kind of rings that you were putting in engines at the time compared to what you're seeing now coming out of companies like Total Seal, and how you have to evolve with that technology, maybe machining, maybe honing. How's it different? How do you present that evolution of technology to the students? Like, hey guys, it wasn't always like it is now.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that. I really would. we just have our ideals, as every shop does, on how to do things, and I'm gonna run over how we do it and stand corrected by Keith if need be. But the one thing that you got to have, you don't have to have anything, but torque plates, okay? Not just torque plates, but a good torque plate with the proper fasteners that does, it takes, and when we torque that down, it's like the head being on it. It can't be perfect, but you can take and map out the cylinder from the bottom with the engine cylinder from the bottom with the head on it, and then just make sure that your torque plate is doing something there. And everybody wants the same fasteners and the same torque and all. Yes, that's all common sense. I'm just going to tell you one thing I've seen with bolts. In a lot of the classes, today they're trying to cut costs and they don't understand. They're making it worse, really. But, they don't want studs. They don't want this, quote, high-dollar stuff. And, head gaskets last longer than the state, but you can't tell them that. But the depth of the engagement of the cylinder, the bolt, okay, the cylinder head bolt into the block does definitely change the top inch of that cylinder. So you have to be careful that you're not just using, in other words, you want the fasteners that go through the torque plate into the block going the same depth that the fasteners are going to do through the head when it's torqued down. Okay, it does clamp different. Good blocks, certainly when we say good blocks, structural rigidity, the torque plate doesn't affect them as much. If the bolts are down deeper, like an LS or some of the modern blocks, it doesn't affect them as much. But don't let anyone tell you that you don't need that on an LS. The threads are way down in the block. It makes a difference on everything. And the weak blocks, I'm just going to be untactful, if that's the word. Good luck. We've put we've put the motor mounts on them and torqued them down. We have put the water pump on it. We have put the bell housing on the back of it. We have tightened not much less the main caps, but also the oil pan. And you map everything, break the things back loose. Okay, and of course, 2 torque plates, one on each side at the same time. You break it on, torque it all back, and the cylinder moves around 1/1000. So good luck with those. You just need a good, robust block, that's for sure. But we like that. We don't do it as much as we should, but I do believe the block should be torque plate honed, certainly in every case. I know there are some good engine builders out there with these big 800 and 900 inch things for reasons I don't know and really don't want to know. They're not using torque plates. I think they just don't stay together long enough. They got a 2,000 shot of spray or 50 pounds of boost or whatever, and they just get it down the track. I don't want to get any of them upset with me, but I don't understand it. But they don't torque plate hone them, and they run. I'm talking about people that run fast. But you need your structural rigidity, okay, in the block. The torque plate definitely helps it, and with the good blocks, it stays there pretty well. It will repeat when it comes back in to be freshened. The bad blocks, especially we do a lot of NHRA stockers. The FE Ford is the worst that we do. We don't use those blocks anymore. We use an aftermarket block, and it made used to the engine would start slowing down at 40, 50 passes. Okay, now we can go 2 years and 130 or 40 passes with the new blocks and rings that seal. Okay, and then the rings themselves, it's pretty simple. Okay, look at who uses total seal rings. It's 90% of everyone that wins races, whatever the format may be. It's one stop. What do these people do? They do rings, okay? And if you need some, I think they call them the claimer rings, in other words, some basic rings that we can put in a hot rod, they have that. And if you want to spend $1,500, $1,700 on rings, they have that. It's a no-brainer to us, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they've earned me saying that. Okay, I've just seen it year after year after year. I used to always, and I still do, you have to have cylinder heads. That's the basis of everything. The heads don't. You need a robust block. Okay, you need cylinder heads that move air, and a sufficient oiling system. Because if it's sufficient, then you can work on it and get it, better. But if you have those three things, or the lack of those three things, you're in trouble, unless the rules require that for everyone running that class. Well, when you get this structural rigidity, and you get then the ring seal. Okay, and I must put in that you need a good, the ring groove has to be cut flat. But you can buy these rings today from Total Seal that we see it in the amount of time it takes for them to come in and how long they stay. I mean, it's just, and you get, I don't know, obviously Keith's there, but I think Bobby, Kevin, I think are the other two. And they can put you on the right path so quick. I mean, just here's my combination, blah, 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 and here's what you need, and then they'll go on from ring gap to, whatever you want to do and how to break the thing in, and even hone jobs. And the hone jobs we could spend 2 hours on, We got the vitrified, and we have the diamond, and we have the CBNs. We have all three of them here, as a matter of fact. We hone with all three of them. And, I check, I literally personally check a lot of, cylinders with a profilometer. That's another thing. If you go to a shop and you're building an engine, I guess, I don't know why I'm saying this, but just get it off my chest. You go to the shop and they don't own a torque plate and they don't have a profilometer, and you're building more than a hot rod. I think really if you have any engine, I think you need to look somewhere else. I mean, those days of back then that we're going to rough everything up and it's going to be basically the size. And back then the pistons varied, 3.5, 4 thousandths out of the box between one and the other. Everybody, what did they do just to be safe? Everybody ran it. If it was a 30 over deal, they put it on 31 and ran some, who knows? Everybody had a different stone, but 525 to a thousandths, and then took a whole thousandths out with the 820, and down the road it went. Well, those days are long gone. Again, structural rigidity, a torque plate, and then we have all three of the honing mechanisms, let's call it. And I've talked to Keith about this. I've talked to some of the best engine builders about this. There's more than one way to get good seal, and we do have a blow-by meter also, But, if I had to sum it up, and I don't have my numbers right here in front of me, but what works for us is kind of what we'd call a lower peak number, the RPK, 10 to 15, something like that off the top of my head. And then the valleys, the RVK, we're somewhere around 40 to 50 on that. And Keith can correct me on any of this at any time, but a thing that we see certainly seems to make a difference. Once we think we got this, this is the way to do it. Well, we do it on the next engine, and it didn't come out quite the same, But our RZ number, basically, that's a mean number, but just the peak to valley difference, okay? We like to see that about 8 to 10 times the RA. And if we get that, I hate to say this with Keith on the phone, but the rest of it just kind of falls in place, We keep records on all this, and we go back and look at this, and what the blow-by. Some of the engines they need to be fresh, and we come back in and we run them on the dyno, get blow-by numbers again. We've done some on the cars, literally. And that's the numbers we've come up with. But we do have a lot of time here because, let's be honest, we have free labor here. And we'll just tear the engine apart, put it back together, And that's what we do here, And that's what we've come up. But I tell you, it's a lot different than, oh my goodness, I don't know, just, finish the thing 1,000ths oversized so it doesn't gall and everybody's happy, and the rings are so thick. And one other thing, I have these little pet peeves. Let me tell you, rings don't know, okay, RPM. Everybody says, well, what RPM we're going to have ring flutter and everything. I just kind of write that off with my students and myself. what the rings know is the piston speed. Okay, and you have a little 3-inch stroke, 300-inch engine, and then you have a 4-inch stroke, 454 engine. At 7,000 RPM, that set of pistons in that 454 is moving a lot faster in feet per minute than that 302 is. So I'm just saying that because I run into that all the time. Well, my RPM's this, well, it must be connected with with the stroke of the engine. That it's kind of like some of the guys. I'm making light of some people. I guess they'll say, "Oh, there's nothing better sounding than a 300-inch comp eliminator motor in NHRA going through the lights at 10 or 11,000 RPM." No, there is. If you take a 400-inch comp eliminator going through the lights at 10 or 11,000 RPM,
yes,
which they do today, it sounds better than the 300-inch motor. It's just simple as that.
It does. I love the fact that you're fired up and you've got you're airing some grievances, but that's what this is for, because when you talk about these ideas, it activates people's minds and makes them want to overcome the challenge. Now, Keith, what about some of the things that Judd just laid out there? Obviously complementary towards what you guys are doing, but he's in the educational system, and he is everything he just said. There's somebody who doesn't know all that, who's trying to transfer that knowledge to themselves, and I'm sure it must be a great environment over there. Keith, what do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. Everything Judson just said was absolutely correct. I mean, I like to cut, copy, and paste and put it on my website. It was absolutely spot on, and that just shows you the level that these guys operate at, and the knowledge level that is there to be gotten. I mean, we field a tremendous amount of tech phone calls every day, and spend a lot of time trying to teach people over the phone the ways, the right, the wrong. You need to do it like this, and like Judd talked about cylinder finish. There's more than one way to get there. There's more than one way to, we'll say, skin that cat, to get what you're after. But the ability and to have access to these people, these minds, and their knowledge, it's second to none. And it's the education that people out there need and deserve to have, because this is where this industry is going. This is not 1975 anymore. This is 2020. We're moving into 2021. This is, the days, like Judson was talking about, having a profilometer, all of these tools are there to eliminate the guesswork. It's like, turning crankshafts and not having a micrometer. Well, I think I took 10 thousandths off of it, but did I really? We have this tool to verify our work, and that's what all these tools do is verify what you just did. And we're not in a place anymore where we can just guess and assume that we're getting it correctly, especially with the modern engine. These are literally little detuned race motors, and they are not forgiving of mistakes. And again, to have access to this kind of knowledge to help you prevent those mistakes and to learn from these things, I wish I had this available to me when I was a teenager.
Well, yeah, it's funny Keith says that, and I appreciate accolades there. Most of that came from Keith. We try all kinds of stuff, but Keith's not wrong. I'm telling you right now. We've had results doing it different ways that came out the same. But that just what I went over for us, and we have a stone machine. You know what I'm saying? We have to have a stone machine because they're still in. Keith, I mean, are they still in half the shops out there? Would you think it's that many left?
Got to be more than that. Have to be more than that. There's a mountain of equipment. I'll just throw this out there. I mean, I was at one guy's shop, kind of middle of last summer. He has a CK10 with a line hone attachment on it that he bought brand new in 1973, and it's still going, still running, still doing its thing, and worth as much today as it was when he bought it brand new, 50 years ago practically. So yeah, there's a lot of that equipment still out there, and you got to teach these guys how to run them.
Yeah, in other words, they want to set all those numbers on that screen and push a button and just watch it go. And I tell them, I said, guys, half the shops out there don't have these things. And I tell you, that separates the men from the boys, okay? I mean, that is a touchy-feely, you better understand what's going on machine to get a good finish with it. I mean, the good thing about these new machines, it is really, really hard, not impossible, but it's much harder to burnish, or get into any problems with the automatic ones than it is the CK10. But the CK10 that we use here, I bought new in 1980.
There you go.
That's how old it is. I bought it new in 19, and the same thing. I could probably sell it today for more than I paid for it.
Yep.
Wow.
It's one of those pieces. I just want to throw this in there. And the modern equipment is tremendous. It truly is. I mean, we've got, an H75 Rottler here. The things, it's a wonderment. Punch in the buttons and watch it go. But to learn on that manual machine, to learn on that CK10 is the foundation or the cornerstone, and to learn what it feels like when the block is out around and what the stones sound like when they're cutting correctly, and the look, the color of the cylinder when it's not burnished, when it's honed correctly. To me, that's a cornerstone piece of knowledge, to learn on that and then take that knowledge and apply it to the modern machinery.
There you go. Perfect. Absolutely.
I would like to know about the students, in that we hear so often that, kids these days, they want everything immediately, and it makes perfect sense, right? You can get anything you want on your iPhone right now immediately. Like, do you want a sandwich right now, guys? I could have a sandwich delivered to each one of you from where I am. I could have it delivered to your shops right now. While we're on the show, we can do anything. But this skill, this talent, it's not an instant talent. Like, you've got to put in the time and the work. So what's it like, Judd, dealing with young people who are coming out of that instantaneous gratification, and you have to give them this understanding that this is not that kind of thing. This is not instant gratification. This is like long work where you have to really put a lot into it, but you'll get a lot out on the other side.
There you go. I'm right or wrong, this is the way we do it, okay? We are one of the only vocational schools in the country that has an entrance exam, and even a second one for the CNC class, okay? But what it is a Bennett or Benet, depending on how you pronounce it, mechanical aptitude test. It was set up for the government, I'll use the term armed forces, to see who they could put in the motor pools, okay, of the draftees or, whoever joined. It really, really works. In other words, it's this simple. If you what we use as the standard is a graduating high school senior, and it's a terrible thing to say, but it's the way it is, in a non-inner city school. Okay, that just skews the scores, but I know there's some good ones out there, but that's what we look at. And if you can pass that, okay, we know that you have mechanical inclination at the least. And that does weed out a number of students. It does. And we just tell them this just isn't for you. So that helps us a lot. Plus, with the next problem we have is our children of today can't read. Okay? I mean, I'm being awful negative here, but they can't read because they don't read. They don't read because they can't read. And it becomes a vicious circle. And we have to get around that. But the big thing that makes a difference is when they come here, they're going to be reading about something that they really enjoy. We're not talking about medieval Europe or whatever. This is engines. This is race cars, okay? We're using, feet per minute formulas and all that. In our associate degree program, our physics book is a physics book for motorsports, okay? And that just makes it, in other words, then the desire to read is there. And then they learn, if I start reading, I can read. I just didn't read because I couldn't. And it works out good, I mean, don't get me wrong, we have some dropouts that, it just overwhelms them and stuff, but not very many. We have one of the highest completion rates in the country. And the government tracks that. That's not me just saying those numbers, for all your accreditations and everything. But they come in here, and we get the letters from the mom and the dads, that I can't believe it. Little Johnny's reading now, and he's calling us, telling them what he did at school today. We were working on the Copo the other night, all night. I mean, did not go home, okay? And 2 o'clock in the morning, they're texting their parents, "Hey, Mom, we're out here working on a race car at 2 a.m." you know, and things like that keep me going. You know what I'm saying? Just seeing that enthusiasm, it really is. Now the next day I wasn't in real good shape. But,
yeah,
we've all had those late nighters.
I'm telling you, there you are. They're just a lot worse now than they were in the 70s. You know, but
sure.
we try really hard. We're here every day. You know what I'm saying? You have racers as owners. There isn't some board, and well, the board's the family. You know what I'm saying? And we've been a school of excellence. That's a big deal. A lot of people don't understand that in our industry, but a school of excellence, less I think it's like 0.6%, less than 1%, obviously, of schools ever get a School of Excellence award, and we've had it, I think, the last 9 years. You know, that's a big thing in our industry, and it takes a lot of work from Linda and the girls to get that every year.
Amazing.
But anyway, that's you know, we're just we like working on the stuff. I've repeated it at least twice already, but I just go to Disneyland every day. You know, I do. But boy, when these kids graduate, you know, and you got, and I don't want to go into all the names. I think they're on our website, but every major team, you know, and good shops. And one of the greatest, I don't even know the name. I apologize because there's so many of them. But one of the good drag race engine building shops in Oklahoma or Kansas, in that area somewhere, he put an ad on, I guess it was Facebook or something. This was only a few months ago. I did not know this person at all. And he put in the ad, need an engine builder / machinist. Must have 5 years experience or be a graduate from the School of Automotive Machinists. Now, it doesn't get much better than that. And in other words, one of the students showed it to us. We knew nothing about this, had nothing to do with it. And so I called the guy, you know, and he says, man, that's what I've seen. He had one, and that one left for a more glamorous job, you know, and he needed another one.
Wow.
But, you know, we like it. I really do. We have a good time, and we really think we get a good product out. We do the best we can. I'll just say that. We work hard. And do I have time for a story?
I think you do. You have a time for a story, of course. Then Keith will dive in because we've taken your time. You could be educating the future right now, and instead you're talking to us. I think it's a good thing. Tell us the story, and then Keith will hit you with the final question.
Okay. This is the alpha female that Linda is, okay? Well, we met, okay, and I was a hot rodder, and back in those days, hot rodders were not looked upon with let's say promise from dads and stuff. But I mean, I was in college. I was clean and neat. I didn't get tickets. I didn't speed, but I street raced 5 nights a week for money. Okay. Anyway, so I was driving a drag car for a guy, which I couldn't afford one, you know, and we're going to a race in Alabama, a points meet in Alabama. And Linda and I had known each other by now about 6 or 8 months, you know. And she said, I want to go. I said, Linda, your mother is not letting you go to Alabama with us. Now, the other one, there was one with a girlfriend, one married, you know. And so we go and we present this to the mother, right? And it was like, there is no way you can forget that. You're not leaving this house. We celebrated our 50th anniversary this March. So she was 18 and I was 20 at this time. And so anyway, she says, you're not going until you're married. That's the end of that. Linda looks at me and she says, what are you doing tomorrow afternoon? I said, I don't know what. She said, let's go get married.
What?
I love it.
I'm serious. And so I said, are you serious? She says, yeah, we'll come back. If we don't like each other, we'll get a divorce.
I love it.
So I said, okay. All right. Now, that's the part of the story there, and we've been together for 50 years. Okay, now here's the beginning of how we met. I was street racing, okay? And we had the drive-ins that we went to, the Prince's, Bill Williams down in this part of the country. And I get a race early in the evening, okay? I get a race, and I take this guy's money. Okay, so I go back. He leaves. Okay, he leaves, and we're sitting there, and we try to get races till 2:00 in the morning, or we'll go to a different part of town, or whatever. Well, Linda, I didn't know her from Adam. She drives up in her '69 Hugger Arn SS Camaro. Okay, and she gets out, and she goes over to a group, and she says, "Hey, who took all the Z28's money?" And they go, "That guy over there." Okay, it was me. Okay, so she comes over to the car and she says, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Fine." She said, "You ran a Z28 and took all of his money?" I said, "Yep." And she says, "Well, that money was going to take me out to eat tonight. So guess what you're going to do with that money? You're taking me out to eat." That's true. That is how you can't make that up.
Wow. That's amazing.
It is legendary.
That is amazing. That is a great story, Judd. Oh, my gosh. My mind is like I'm thinking about all these different thoughts like, Brian, your parents are way cooler than you are, bud. Like, wow, this is amazing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That is too cool.
I'm kidding, Brian. I know Brian's listening. I'm kidding. But that is like a great story, first of all. And obviously, you mentioned it, that she took your mini gripe, like, man, there should be a school for people, and said, we should do the school, and you did the school. And on this podcast, we've had so many high-quality engine builders name check you and say, start there. And I'm going to ask you your version of the advice question, but first, I'm going to let Keith ask you a final question. Keith, go in any direction that you think is pertinent so we can extract a little final information from Judd.
Well, that's kind of a tough one because he's given us so much good information right now. But what I was going to say to Judd was, if things would have gone differently, where do if you hadn't done the school, do you think where do you think you would have ended up? If Linda hadn't come into your life and graced you with her presence, where do you think you would have ended up?
I will tell you, I would like to have been an airplane pilot. I just, yes, I've always had a distant fascination. I have, a number of friends that are pilots, and I actually bought the books and was going to go, but I was so, the racing, how it is, it's 24/7, and I never did a thing about it. But I've got to ride in some vintage aircraft. I was a skydiver, just on and on, but. I see these guys down here, they restore airplanes like we restore cars. We actually are one of the only vocational school I know of. We actually do work for NASA, and for NASA itself, but we build engines for 2 or 3 of their engineers. Okay. And so we got a lot of connections down there, we get to go into places the public never gets to go and see things like that. Now, let me just tell you the first thing. Judd's intelligence isn't going to get, that some of those guys there are just, it's unbelievable just to carry on a conversation with them. Their mind is just different than mine, how it can process knowledge. It's just incredible. But anyway, that being said, what they do, okay, they have their airplanes like we have streetcars, okay, and they race these planes, but they don't race them how fast they will go. It's how high they will go. And they do this down at Ellington Air Force Base, which is just, down the road here about 25 miles. But I like being around, I use the term people of that caliber. It just, you see how hard they work, and they have some, God-given gifts. There's no doubt about that the average people don't have. But they're like us. They're different in us in many ways, but they're like us in many ways. And they do the same things, I just say at a different level. Wow.
It makes perfect sense. That's how I feel being on this show, being around people of this caliber. And it's certainly the reason I think a lot of our listeners listen to the show, to hear these kind of conversations. Keith, that was great. Judd, advice to the next generation. I'm sure this is right in the wheelhouse. You're talking to these people all the time, but in this case, we've got listeners out there, hopefully young people. They want to make their way in this profession. They love cars. They love mechanics. They're interested. They're downloading a podcast called Hidden Horsepower by Total Seal. What is your advice to the person that wants to get started in this field? And obviously you have the school. That makes sense. Lay it on us.
You got to start, the earlier the better. And I'm going to warn you about one thing. Some of the students come here and they say, well, I've always wanted to do this, but I haven't. Is that going to be detrimental? Let me tell you what I've seen after 35 years. A sharp, motivated kid with no education can be easier. Okay, I'm talking to age 17 or 18, no education. I mean, high school, but no mechanical education, let's say. Okay, he is easier to teach than it is one that's been around incompetent people, putting the wrong things in their heads. I got to beat that out of their heads. Okay? I mean, it's just no. Well, this is what I heard. This is what you know what I'm saying? I mean, but you got to get an education. And one of the things I tell the students, this is going to sound crazy, but you need to be the least educated person in the group of friends that you run with. Okay? If it's the other way around, they drag you down. If you're the way I'm speaking of, be the least educated in your group, you're brought up. I was raised in at best, a lower middle class neighborhood, and I saw the racers there. I saw them, and we go out to the drag strip, and I see their cars, and they got their 2.4s and this and that, and ported heads, and they're not running faster than some of these NHRA stockers. And I go, how can that be? Well, it was very simple, okay? I just said, I'm not hanging around these guys anymore. I'm going over and sweep floors. This guy's name was Richard Stelter, okay? And I saw that this guy with less everything was running faster than they were. So be around people that are successful. That's what, an alpha male, that's what he wants to do. He wants to be the best car, the most money, the whatever it is in his group. When you're trying to get ahead, you need to be the least. For whatever that, I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I've seen.
Not to me. That makes perfect sense to me. But you're on a journey. You want to get there. You're not going to start out there. You want to get there. And by being around that, you will receive information that will help you get there. I couldn't have said it better myself. Judd, excellent work. Really appreciate you coming on Hidden Horsepower. Keith, this has been fantastic.
It has. It's absolutely been an honor, Judd. And I just wanted to kind of touch on one of the things Judd said. It is amazing to be around the people that, just ooze that knowledge and ooze that information. And that's the whole point of going to places like the school is to be able to absorb all that knowledge that's around you and to be open to it, willing to take it in, digest it, and listen to it. And then ideas pop up. You'll hear things that you might not have thought of yourself, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and that's where innovation sparks. And it is. It's great to surround yourself with these very knowledgeable people and people that can bring forth that information. And I've like Judd does for his students. I've been fortunate to have been around people like that, and been privileged to we'll say absorb some of their greatness.
And Keith, I interrupt you for 1 second. What about we're talking about racers running this school, owning this school. Okay, what about Total Seal with Matt running Total Seal? Do you have a real educated racer there?
Oh, absolutely. Matt's
I rest my
case.
Guy. Think about that. Yeah, just oh my gosh, can you imagine? I mean, the owner / CEO, whatever his title is, okay, is a very educated racer.
Oh, amazing.
Absolutely. For those that don't know the background, I mean, Matt is, he's a self-made man. No one's handed this guy anything in his life. He went into the U.S. Navy, studied as a nuclear engineer, spent times on subs, on the boats, and really has put himself where he is. No one's given him anything. And, so an extremely motivated individual, very knowledgeable individual, and very, very passionate. I mean, the guy, exudes passion. I mean, look at what he does. Look at his racing, running pro stock. I mean, does it with a handful of people. That to me, that just says it all. That just says everything you need to know about him.
The only question mark,
100%.
The only question mark is that he lets me touch his car every once in a while, which is obviously not the right thing to do. Judd, thank you very much for coming on Hidden Horsepower. So illuminating what's going on with the school. And let's take a second. If there's someone listening and they're interested in going to the school, or maybe they've got a son or a daughter who would be in the wheelhouse of this, the website is SAMTech.edu. But, what is the right way to go about it? Just give you guys a call, go to the website. What's the best move?
Sure. Yeah. Just go to the website, or whatever. Other words, you can go right through the the motions there and get here, but you can just dial the number 713-683-3817. And I won't get to the phone if you call, but you can tell them you want to talk to me, and I'll come to I'll return your call. Yeah.
Simple as that.
But just you can come by anytime if you're in the vicinity or you're in town. We'd like to have an appointment if you want a tour and everything, but we can work it in. We're open all the time.
That is fantastic. Judd, great job. Thank you so much. I learned a lot in just this conversation. I can't imagine what it's like to be a student. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your knowledge and a little bit of your passion with us here on Hidden Horsepower.
Joe, thank you for having me. I really had a good time with y'all guys. And Keith, thank you for everything you've done for the school. Your Total Seal bails us out every time we mess up.
I'm glad to help you anytime in any way we can, as always.
Okay, guys.
And there he goes, Judson Massingill. Keith, that was fantastic. Kind of a different angle from what we normally do, but so vital, so important, and such great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's Judd and the school, and they're just a class act. If you want to, like I said earlier in this, I wish there was something like that back in the late 70s, that I could have attended after coming out of high school, and to have the ability and the access to a place like that, just unbelievable. The facilities, and I've been very fortunate to work with quite a few of the instructors there and some of the race car projects that they've got. And these guys are, they're the real deal. They're legit.
And he didn't want to mention all the names, but I'll mention some of the names. Hendrick Motorsports, John Force Racing, Roush Yates Racing Engines, John Kazi, who said it himself, Penske Racing, Cosworth, Don Schumacher Racing, Gray Motorsports, just the list goes on and on. Stanfield Racing Engines, I know that, a couple of the graduates of SAMTech went on and just won the SAMTech.edu Factory Stock Showdown Championship with Aaron Stanfield. Countless others have students who graduated from the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. And he spoke highly of you guys.
Well, and we do definitely appreciate that, as we do him. And I just wanted to throw onto that list, he didn't mention it, but we're talking about U.S.-based racing teams that that his students have gone into, and I know ones that are from overseas, Europe, Australia. These guys have literally migrated worldwide and into some pretty we'll say pretty impressive positions. So it's not just here in this country either.
Exactly. And as, Sam's director of education, he's a technical consultant for publications like Hot Rod, Carcraft, Super Chevy, Engine Masters Magazine. Judd is really getting it done, and I love his attitude. That was fantastic. Keith, another episode in the books. If they're out there and they're working on their own engine, the motivation is sparking. They want to try to do something, maybe find a little horsepower, and they want to hook up with you. What should they do?
Just reach out to us, TotalSeal.com. You can call the 800 number, 800-874-2753. You can email me, KeithJ@TotalSeal.com. We absolutely look forward to that communication with you. Kind of like Judd said, hey, it's a confusing, pathway out there to know what's the right thing. Should I do this? Should I do that? If I have a blower, is it a turbo? Is it NA? Is it an old restoration? Give us a call. We'll help guide you down that path. Tell us what it is you're doing. Tell us what you're looking for out of it, and we'll give you this is what you need. This is where you need to be.
There you go. He's Keith Jones, the Director of Technical Sales at Total Seal Piston Rings. I'm Joe Castello. Keith, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Hidden Horsepower. I want to remind everybody, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, all great places to subscribe to the podcast. If you like it, write a review so that everybody else can see exactly what it's all about, the kind of podcast it is, and whether or not they should subscribe and download. Also, Total Seal got a brand new website for ordering product, of course, and certainly doing the research, but you can get the podcast, plus Lake Speed Jr. doing a lot of stuff on YouTube, all kinds of great stuff on the website. Go to TotalSeal.com. I'm Joe Castello. You can follow me at WFO Joe. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Also, I do a podcast called WFO Radio, and you should be able to find it when you find Hidden Horsepower. That's going to do it. We'll see you next time right here on Hidden Horsepower, presented by Total Seal.